Thank you. I've been told there are people out here, and I can't see any of you. So, but first of all, it's wonderful to be here, and I mean that. This is a real thing going on here, and I have to tell you though, I flew in yesterday from Philadelphia. I forgot to pack two things: my MacBook charger, which means I can't grade, shucks, and I didn't pack a shirt. So I'm wearing a t-shirt, and apparently this is a big thing, so I'm standing in front of a few thousand people in a t-shirt talking, and I'm gonna try to overlook that, but I'm really sorry. And you can't see, but I looked down before, there's a tiny, tiny hole right here. So I'm just gonna stand like this the whole time. Anyway, okay, so what I'd like to talk with you about today is just something that's really important to me. So I just thought I'd share it with you. And it's how the universe, literally the universe, which is so strange, has really affected how I think about God. Just paying attention to how we understand physical reality has for me been sort of exciting, but also unsettling, to be honest with you. Very challenging. And so that's the point. I think our universe is telling us something about God that is going to force us, and myself certainly, to expand our thinking on what God is like. That's the bottom line. All right. So, are you working? There we go. Psalm 19. Who knows Psalm 19? There it is. The heavens are declaring the glory of God. The heavens are speaking of the glory of God. This is a psalm attributed to David, who lived around 1000 BC, long time ago. And the heavens are declaring the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night declares knowledge. Now, there is no speech, right? Nor are there words. Their voice is not heard. Nevertheless, their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. That's a beautiful psalm. Here we have, in the biblical tradition, an engagement of the cosmos and how the cosmos brings you to see something about the nature of God. And that's wonderful. Here's the problem, though. This is David's universe. You have there, at the top, that thing that looks like bricks. That's the firmament. And above that is the waters that the firmament keeps up and away, because those are the waters of chaos. It doesn't let them crash down back onto the earth, unless it's the flood story. And then you see the floodgates over there. They open up and let those waters back down again. There's Sheol over there, the abode of the dead. You have the mountains on the perimeters that are helping to hold this firmament up. That was David's world. That's how we understood the cosmos. And we don't understand it that way anymore, do we? I don't think we do. For us, it's more something like this, but not entirely. This is not drawn to scale. These are the planets like hanging out or something. I don't know what they're doing there, but I don't even know why I picked that picture. I just saw that and I said, I really like that for some reason. And I guess that's supposed to be the sun in the middle. But this is our cosmos. This is what we deal with. This is what we see. This is what we're taught. This is what we think about. How does that affect how we think about the nature of reality? How do we think about this and then also think about what God is like? To me, those are big issues, and they're not going away anytime soon. Now, there's a map, just to illustrate things, okay? We measure things, not we, I don't measure anything, but scientists measure things in light years. 182,262 miles per second. That's the speed of light in a vacuum, right? So this, you can see, is a map of the United States. This is New York to Los Angeles, the flight pattern, which is about 2,500 miles, and round trip is 5,000. Now, a little audience participation. Are you ready? Are you ready? Turn to the person next to you, say, I love them, and give them a hug. No, don't do that. Anybody ever tells you to do that, don't listen to these people. They're bad people. They're evil people. But what I want you to do on the count of 3, all by your lonesome, is just blink. And I don't mean like blink, like close your eyes and open them again, but just blink like somebody's throwing sand in your face. All right? Ready? 1, 2, 3. That blink took about 4/10 of a second. And in that period of time, 4/10 of a second, light traveled from New York to Los Angeles and back again 15 times. In 4/10 of a second, 75,000 miles, almost 3 laps around the earth. We judge distances in the cosmos by light years. And I think it's incredible, frankly. I mean, we hear this stuff all the time, but does the magnanimity of it hit us that we live in a big universe? Here's a picture of a galaxy. It's not our galaxy. We can't really get a picture of our galaxy, can we? We live in it, right? So, but this is a galaxy. And in the Milky Way, let's talk about the Milky Way, our galaxy. In the Milky Way galaxy, there are approximately 100 billion stars. That's a lot. You know how much 100 billion is? It's a lot. It's a very big number. If you count to 1 million, if you counted 1 count per second and went to 1 million, it would take you 11 and a half days, roughly, to count to 1 million. A billion is 1,000 times that. That would take 32 years. 32 years to count 1, 2, 3, up to a billion. 100 billion? Well, that's 3,200 years. If you wanted to count the number of stars in our Milky Way galaxy, and had you started during the days of David, you still wouldn't be done. And that's one galaxy. And that's the minimal number. Some say there could be as many as 400 billion stars in our galaxy. So that's 4 times, that's about 13,000 years it would take you to count the stars in our galaxy. And the thing is, the closest star, am I boring you? I don't care. This is exciting to me, right? Just shut up and listen, all right? This is about reality, okay? My daughters would be like, Dad, just put it in a PowerPoint and just walk away. We're tired of listening to this stuff. But anyway, the closest star to our sun would take about 4 1/3 years to reach, traveling at the speed of light. Imagine blinking nonstop for 4 1/3 years. And each blink, light has gone 75,000 miles. That's how long it takes to get to the closest star. And what's in between? Nothing. A lot of space. How big is this galaxy? We can't even comprehend it. And then this picture, I love this picture. This is taken from the James Webb telescope that went up a couple years ago. Better resolution than the Hubble telescope. And as many of you probably know this, each point of light in this frame, this was taken of a section of space that was considered to be sort of empty, nothing much is going on. That's going on. And each point of light there is a galaxy, not a star. Frankly, folks, that blows me away. The closest galaxy to our galaxy, the Andromeda galaxy, would take 2.5 million years to reach, going at the speed of light. Folks, I don't even know what to do with a number like that. The size of our cosmos, the size of the universe, is truly unimaginable. It's out of the scale that we cannot even comprehend. If you have math, you can sort of do it. But people like us, people like me, we have no frame of reference for thinking about these things. And now we're told, how many galaxies are there in the universe? Well, we don't know yet, but the known universe, the estimate has gone up considerably since the James Webb Space Telescope. They're now talking about 2 trillion galaxies as a rough estimate. How much is a trillion? It's 1,000 times a billion. To count to 2 trillion at 1 count per second would take you 64,000 years. Okay, I give up. And now we're going to talk about God. as if it's on my pay scale even to do something like that, right? What is happening here in creation? I think it's amazing. So I think we need a new Psalm 19, right? The heavens are infinitely, unimaginably large, and that freaks me out a little bit. It's not like, it's so great, the heavens are fantastic. What's happening? What is happening here, right? And here's the real question, where is God in all this? Is God up? Is there an up? There's really no up, you know. And if God is up there, where? Hiding behind one of the galaxies? What does it mean for God to be up? Does that even make sense anymore? It doesn't. And who am I and do I matter? This happy fellow, Blaise Pascal, who was actually a brilliant philosopher and mathematician, and he was alive during, the age of the telescope, and Copernicus and Galileo and those guys talking about the solar system and figuring out some pretty interesting stuff. But he thought about these things, and this is one of my favorite quotes from a depressed philosopher. The eternal silence of the infinite spaces terrifies me. And I have to be honest with you, I'm with Pascal more than I am with David. Because Pascal had to deal with a universe that was very different than the one people had known beforehand. And for us still, it's gotten exponentially different. Well, two more things I want to lay on you before I leave and never see you people again, all right? So, gravity and time. What is gravity? I don't know, but I've read. And this is what smart people say. Gravity is not so much a force. Gravity is space itself being bent by massive objects, like, for example, the sun or the earth. So the way they explain this to people like me who don't do math is think of a huge king-size bed sheet. And people are standing all around it, holding it very taut. You put a marble in the middle, and probably nothing's going to happen. It's going to sit there. You put a bowling ball in, and what's going to happen? It's going to sink down. Then put the marble on the sheet, and what's the marble going to do? It's going to go towards the bowling ball. That is how gravity works. This is what Einstein figured out. Space is actually a fabric. That's a metaphor. It's not literally a fabric, but it acts like a fabric, and it bends under the weight of massive objects. So the earth is bending space. The sun is bending space. That's what makes the moon revolve around the earth and the earth revolve around the sun. So I'm just throwing this out there. Space bends, folks. And I understand. We sit there and go, whatever. No, space bends. And you know what else bends because of mass? Time. Okay? Somebody born down, who lives his life or her life down there, is going to age more slowly than somebody who lives up there. We know that for a scientific fact. That's not conjecture. We know this. They've had atomic clocks that they set up, and time goes more slowly down there than it does up there. The closer you are to a massive object, the slower time goes for you. Did you hear that? Technically, and I'm not kidding here, technically your head ages faster than your feet. And I mean that, right? And then, you have, for example, this is the big picture on the left is a depiction of what happens in a black hole. A black hole is like the most massive thing in the universe. What happens when you approach a black hole? Nobody knows, but Matthew McConaughey knows if you saw Interstellar, right? Time just does freaky things. See, the thing is that time is not constant. Time is relative. And that's why Einstein spoke of a space-time fabric. Both are, they work together somehow, and they all respond to massive objects in a certain way. So, Again, I don't know about you. I think we need to rewrite Psalm 19 again, right? The heavens declare the glory of God. Yeah, whatever. Space bends? Is time an illusion? And the thing is that, for me, this raises existential kinds of questions, like it did for Blaise Pascal. Who am I? Do I matter? And what do we think about God in all this? Stay tuned. Another example, quantum entanglement. I can sort of see, how many people have heard of quantum entanglement? Right. How many of you understand it? Don't you dare. Don't you dare. I don't either, but I've talked to people who do, and they tell me I'm not a complete idiot about it. So I want to try to explain as best as I can. And it's in movies and TV shows and all sorts of stuff, right? But here's the thing, right? You take a photon. A photon is the smallest packet of energy that we have. How big is a proton? I'll tell you how big a proton is. You take a 12-inch ruler and you cut it into 1 billion pieces. I'm not done yet. Then you take one of those billion pieces and you cut that into 1 million pieces. That's a photon. So what they can do is, apparently they can split a photon. I don't know how, like those pill things you do. I don't know. But here's the thing. When you have a photon that you split in half, what you do is you've created, let's say, 2 photon twins. And here's what happens. As one moves, the other moves. As one turns or one flips, the other does. It's as if they're in sync. And so scientists obviously said, well, maybe that's interesting. You split them and they behave exactly the same way, as if they're still one. Well, they're entangled. That's the point. Well, maybe they're communicating with each other. They're not communicating with each other. How do we know that? Because this has also been shown in laboratories scientifically. Theoretically, you could take these 2 photons and move them apart, these 2 twins, and it doesn't matter how far apart they go, they're still entangled. You could move them 1 light year apart, and they're still doing this instantaneously. That's a big deal, folks, because they can't be communicating with each other in any way, because nothing goes faster than the speed of light. If they're 1 light year apart, it should take a year for this one to do this, the other one, and then finally they do it. So what does that mean? Well, it means that time and space may not mean that much on the quantum level. This is weird. This is the thing that made Einstein lose it. He said, no way. Spooky action at a distance is what he called it. This can't be. It would disrupt the laws of physics. But others have figured it out, and this is actually true. This has actually been demonstrated on a very small scale in laboratories. So I think we need a new Psalm 19 here. I don't know about you. The fact that the world of the very small behaves in impossible, bizarre, and inexplicable ways declares to us the glory of God. And that's where, in my mind, I'm heading with all this. It doesn't declare the glory of God because we understand it. It declares the glory of God because we don't. It's a messed up universe we live in. See, this worked for David. His understanding of the universe brought him to give praise to God. Our understanding of the universe erases this completely. And now I think it's up to us to think, well, how does this universe that we live in affect how we think about God? How does this universe that we live in make us approach God and think about God differently than the faith that we have inherited? And I know, I understand the context that I'm in here. I've been in very conservative Presbyterian contexts. I understand that. In the Presbyterian world, their faith is actually a medieval faith. It's rooted in medieval things. And so the modern world has come around, and some Christian denominations really struggle with how to adapt an ancient inherited faith rooted in a book that talks like this, how to adapt that to talk about what we have to talk about. To me, that's the big question. And I think the universe is sort of screaming at us. David, you're not helping. Just go play your harp elsewhere. No, David's a great guy. If he were here, he'd be agreeing with me, I'm sure. So anyway, so here is again that shot of those galaxies, and let's work on a new Psalm 19, shall we? All right. The big, unfathomable, incomprehensible heavens are declaring to us, not to people in previous generations, but to us, the glory of God. And the eternal, infinite cosmos proclaims his handiwork. Not the dome overhead, which Genesis 1 talks about, and there are reasons why they said that, ancient reasons, right? But the eternal, infinite cosmos proclaims his handiwork. Day to day and night to night, just thinking about the galaxies, light distances, the bending of space-time, and quantum weirdness, right? Well, they pour forth speech. There's no speech. There are no words. Their voice is not heard. They don't talk. And yet, their voice goes through all the earth. I mean, literally, you can't get away from it. And their words to the end of the world. And they are telling us, and this is where I'm coming out, this is basically gas clouds where stars are born. It's a beautiful picture from the James Webb Telescope. But the thing is that our universe has very quickly, within the past 100 years, our universe has become incomprehensible to anybody living before. It's become bigger, stranger, and mind-blowing. And the question I ask is, can the creator of the universe be any less so? Bigger, stranger, weirder, if it's okay to call God weird. At least in this sense, I think it is. See, I think if the creation is such a thing, can the creator not match that in some way? Do you see what I'm saying? What is this universe telling us about the creator? I think for me, in a nutshell, it's this. God can be known, but God is way outside of our ability to know. Our words are what they are. Our words are all attempts at expressing what cannot be expressed. And that's a hard thing to hear for any Christian institution or denomination that has put a lot of stake in traditional formulations of what God is like. Formulations that came to be long before the quantum and Einsteinian revolution of the last 120, 130, 140 years. And so I ask, what do we do with that? What does it mean to be a responsible believer? Does it mean to ignore, or does it mean to engage? I think it means to engage. Last slide here. I just like these pictures. Anybody familiar with this picture? It's fairly well, 4 of you, perfect. Okay. Anyway, these are 2 shots of what are called the pillars of creation. And the one on the left is taken from the Hubble telescope, the one on the right from the James Webb telescope. You see the different definitions, they had different filters, different way of taking pictures. And I used to have this, and I still do occasionally on my computer, on my wallpaper, just to remind me that I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm dead serious about that. I think about God, I talk about God, I talk about the Bible, which is way easier, by the way, than talking about God. It's right there, it's in writing. God is God, right? But These are amazing. These pillars of creation are 7,000 light years away. And to give you a sense of things, I don't know if I have a little pointer here. I'm going to try this and hope it works. No, this is working against a conspiracy against me. I get it. Okay. So, but anyway, if you look at those tendrils, look at the top left tendril. If you could take our entire solar system and put it in there, it would be an imperceptible pinprick. From top to bottom, these tendrils are about 10 light years long, and the width about 5 light years. And I like this picture because here's where it drives me, okay? For me, this is how I work this out, and I'm going to be working this out my whole life without a full resolution. How can I? We're talking about God and the cosmos. And here I am, and I can't even pack a shirt when I come speak, right? But the one thing that has become a very important word for me is mystery. I think God is fundamentally mystery. God can be known, and God is making God self-known. But at the end of the day, this universe is shouting, screaming at me that you have no idea. And what that does is it sparks humility. And I've been a part of churches and institutions where I'm not sure how much humility there is when we talk about God. We talk about God as if, well, obviously, this is how God works. Get a book, Systematic Theology, Chapter 1, The Nature of God, The Doctrine of God. God is this, God is that. Yeah, maybe, sure, okay, fine, but that's like a pinprick in this whole pillars of creation. God is much bigger. And to me, that sparks 2 final things here. One is just curiosity. I'm a big fan of curiosity being a core value of people of faith. Not fear we're going to get God wrong, because we are, but just a sense of, I get to try to think about what God is like. As much as that might wreak havoc with older ways that I'm familiar with, that I like thinking about God. I like the idea of God up there looking down. But there's not really an up. And I think God is everywhere anyway. So how do I talk about God now? Well, but that's, to me, that's curiosity. That's not, oh no, if I get it wrong, God's going to be mad at me. What if God delights in our curiosity? And finally, for me, it's bringing more and more peace to my life of faith. The fact that the pressure's off, Pete, you're not going to figure this out. And you don't have to. But we get to delight, we get to explore ways to praise God with this universe that no one's ever heard of until about 100 years ago. And I do wonder, what will God do? How will our understanding of God change? There's one theologian I like, I won't mention his name because he's rather obscure, but he says what we need, and this really struck me. He says we need a third millennium theology. A theology that deals with the realities of, by the way, folks, we're in the third millennium now, right? So the third millennium theology that takes into account our reality, not a medieval reality, not an ancient Near Eastern reality, as it was with David, but takes into account our reality. And my strong feeling is that doing that is nothing short of our sacred responsibility as people of faith, to think through these things and to be encouraging of each other as we think through our faith, and to be tolerant of people who maybe have different points of view than we do, because we're all trying to deal with the same mystery, which is the mystery of God and this universe that God has made. All right, folks, I'll have you know that my clock just went to 0 with that last statement. So I'm the best speaker here, probably. I finished exactly on time. All right, folks. See ya. Thanks.